everybody. My name is Pat Hanlon. We're here live at Revival House Records and Film with Ned Bolle of Mean Old Fireman. We're going to run down his rig, which is pretty cool, pretty fancy. It's got some neat tricks that we're going to show you as we talk through things. Ned, how you doing? How are things?
Doing great.
Good. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me what's happening here. Let's start with this guitar.
Well, this is I call it my Swiss Army guitar because it's kind of set up to do just about anything I want. It started life as a made in Mexico 72 thin line reissue, and as you can see, there's not much left other than the body. Now the neck is from Warmouth because I wanted a bigger profile. Locking tuners from Gateau. Standard size humbuckers rather than the wide range, so I had to get a new pickguard. And I set it up Nashville style, so it gives me the opportunity to get those Strat sounds. I can cut the coils in and out to get humbucker or single coil tones.
Very cool.
And you know, with a 5-way switch, that's great, but it kind of leaves you out of the classic Tele sound with the neck and bridge only. So this toggle here puts in the bridge pickup in any position, so it lets me do the bridge and neck or the all three combo, which, you know, sometimes that works too. So it's pretty much made to cover as many bases as possible.
Tell me a little bit more about what happens from guitar into this Demeter, because this is not your traditional guitar head, it looks like.
No, it's a little bit different. The Demeter is kind of unique. It's an amp made by Jim Demeter. He's probably best known for building amps for Dean DeLeo of Stone Temple Pilots.
Ugh, my favorite. Ugh. The solo on Trippin' on a Hole on a Paper Heart is one of my favorite guitar solos of all time. I love his tone.
Yeah, and a lot of that is built on the Demeter preamp.
Cool.
So the TGA-1 is a hybrid amp. It has the preamp section, which Jim basically modeled after a 59 Bassman. And it's got just tremendous headroom, which is great for working with pedals.
Right.
And it has an effects loop, a buffered effects loop built in, and then it has a 180 watt Class D power output. So, you know, it gives you the ability to basically cover any stage with one amp.
Fantastic.
You know, and it also is very convenient in that it will ride on the board itself.
It travels so well.
Yeah, so basically I have this in a cabinet, my guitars, I'm good to go.
It's got a flip top vibe too, which I really love. Cool. Anything special going on with this cab here? What do we have here? Eminence? Eminence?
Yeah, it has two Eminence Swamp Fangs. Cool. Which are 10s. I like 10s a lot. It's an open back cab, so it's not necessarily ideal for a really big stage. So I have a couple of 412 cabinets, you know, Marshall,
depending on where you're playing.
Yeah, and if I need that push and I need to not be losing half of it out the back, you know, in a club, an open back is fine.
Yeah.
You get on a big stage and you really need the closed back.
Very cool. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on here with these pedals.
Okay, so beyond the Demeter TGA-1, the heart of the board is the RJM Mastermind PBC, the PBC 10. And so this is a loop switcher and a MIDI controller.
Cool.
And, you know, my experience with them has just been great. I had used their equipment in rack systems previously, and when I made the transition to something a little more portable, you know, it was kind of a natural to go that route.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's nice and heavy duty. It's super, super flexible. And the support from Ron and Sherry is just unbelievable.
You love to hear it.
Yeah, it's, you know, somebody says, geez, you know, I'd really like this feature, and Ron's response is either, well, I can't really do that with the software architecture, or more likely it's, yeah, I'll put that in the next revision. Amazing. And he doesn't charge for revisions.
Oh man, okay.
So they're always worth doing.
Unbelievable.
He's constantly refining it. And, you know, it's not a teeny tiny company, but chances are you call up and you talk to either Ron or Sherry when they answer the phone.
Oh, it's fantastic. It really does make a big difference. You're talking to someone that knows all the nuts and bolts intimately.
Yeah, so this gives me the ability to set up the sounds in presets, and if I choose, which I usually do, to set up the presets into songs, so I can create a set list,
Yeah.
go directly from one sound to another, without having to hit 6 or 7 switches, to get the kind of tone I want. So
Yeah.
for performance, this lets me pull off stuff that just wouldn't be practical without it.
Right. What else do we have here? So you have the time-based effects for the Eventide, and that's, I would imagine, is giving you a lot of options there.
Yeah, and I use time-based effects. I don't want to say sparingly. I'll say conservatively. I use them on a lot of songs. I only occasionally use really long delays or really, really rich, thick reverbs, but I really like having those.
Yeah.
Even if it's just to add some coloration to an intro or whatnot. And particularly when we travel, we operate as a trio. It just gives me a little more, some richer textures to
And some
add.
fatness too as a 3-piece. And I mean, does it get better than Eventide for that stuff? The fat, wide, lush sounds. Eventide does such a good job of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's others that do well, but I've really kind of found a home with their products.
And it's cool that they're so versatile that you could do some of the more subtle stuff too. The set it and forget it. Maybe a slap or something like that's probably going to be pretty easy to dial in as well.
Yeah, that's something I use quite a bit.
Right
so
on.
that's a preset that gets pulled up quite frequently.
Awesome. What else do we have here?
Well, so basically, it's starting in order. The first is the Demeter Fuzzulator, which is kind of your classic fuzz. It in particular is nice because it's actually two. You have a germanium fuzz, which is labeled loose.
Speaking my language.
And
germanium fuzz is my favorite by a lot.
Yeah, and then you also have a silicon fuzz, so you can go from like the Jimi Hendrix kind of sound to like the Eric Johnson kind of sound.
Cool.
After that, in the next loop is the RJM Overture.
Okay.
Which is a MIDI controllable overdrive that gives you a whole range from a clean boost to a really, really thick saturated overdrive. Yeah, after that, we have the Octonaut, which is basically a Klon Centaur clone. In the last loop in front of the preamp is the Bloom compressor from Jackson Audio.
Cool.
And again, that's also MIDI controlled. Great device. Gives you the ability to go from like a, kind of a fairly soft knee kind of compression to like really, really deep and squishy, like,
Fantastic.
like the Little George cascaded
Yes.
kind of effect, which I use on occasion. So it's nice to have that, but it's much easier than, previously I'd run two Origin Effects slide rigs and have one set soft and one hit set hard. It's like, that's kind of a lot of space on the board, and they're not cheap. And this kind of does it all.
Very cool. And I mean, it keeps this rig compact, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, let's do a bird's eye view. You have your amp head and all of your pedals and this wild MIDI controller preset maker all within a flight case, that you can carry with one hand. That's brilliant, That's generally going to be at least 2 trips, maybe more, and it's going to be cumbersome and harder to travel with. Just the compactness of this rig, I think, is something that's really special.
Well, thanks. It's something that's been a long time coming, and it's really key because a lot of times now, you're playing a festival, you're not given a lot of time to set up. You want to, you want to be able to do it easily. You don't want to have to stress out about it. Get things set up, know that it's going to work.
Yeah.
Cut down how much you have to carry.
Absolutely.
So again, just to rule out some of the problems that you can run into.
Tell me a little bit about these last 2 guitars. I believe this one is a baritone guitar.
Yeah, so this is a baritone. It started out life as a made in Mexico Nashville Telecaster, which I gutted. That's a Warmoth conversion neck, 28 and 5/8 scale.
Let me grab this thing real quick. I want to show the people of the world as we talk. Wow, this is a heavy lady. Sorry, continue.
So that's a Wenge neck with a Bloodwood fretboard with jumbo stainless steel frets. A little unusual for a slide player, but I just like the feel of it. And again, I gutted the electronics, The bridge is from Armadillo Guitars in Austin, Texas. Michael does some great work. He made the knobs as well. And then I kept the Nashville setup, and those are JBE Danny Gatton set with the JBE Strat in the center position.
I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that is in love with the idea of a baritone guitar, but I have never played one and I know nothing about them. So you're saying that this was just a regular guitar body that you then converted to become a baritone? Is it the string gauge that creates the baritone sound, or just tuning?
Well, it's a little of both. So first of all, the scale length is longer.
Okay, yeah.
So that it's tuned quite a bit lower. And has considerably heavier gauge strings on it. So where I use a 56 for a low on a standard scale, I use anywhere from a 70 to an 80 on the low string. So this one is truly a parts caster.
Very cool.
This was made out of a $25 Chinese Telecaster body. And then again, it has the JBE pickups, and this has a Warmoth neck on it as well.
Cool.
This one is set up in the style that most people are probably used to. A 10 gauge first string, a little thinner neck profile,
And maybe a little easier to get around the neck.
Yeah, I mean, so I do play a couple of songs a night now without slide, so I bring this along. It's it's versatile. It covers everything that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And it's not anything. It's not an expensive guitar, but it has the feel and the sound that I'm looking for.
Amazing. Well, here, enough of us talking. I am going to get behind the camera where I'm much more comfortable, my friends. And we're going to do some shooting and see what this rig actually sounds like.
Okay, so we'll start out with kind of the traditional Telecaster type tone, and we're just going through a little bit of compression and a little bit of slap back. So this is a single coil setting, and with the bridge and neck. Then to get like kind of the more the Strat kind of sound. Or the in-between higher up. Then a lot of times if I'm going for a little more of an overdriven sound, I like to push it a little bit, so I go into the humbucker position. Which I usually roll off a little bit of the high end on. So it gives me a lot of possibilities just from what's on the guitar, and not without having to go into the board. But I like to go into the board too. So this is the baritone, which is tuned in Vastapol A. So the low A is the same as the A on a bass guitar. So it's kind of important not to step on the bass player or have the bass player step on you when you get down to the lower end. So basically, Vastapol in A is A, E, A, C sharp, E, A, going low to high. And again, with this, you can get those kind of Strat sounds with the again, just kind of nice, richer tone. And especially, I always like having a little twang on the low end. So this is my go-to guitar for those rare occasions that I play without a slide, which typically has been maybe 2 or 3 songs a night at most. So this is a little more typical of how players would have it set up, with a 10 set for strings, a little thinner neck profile. Again, the neck's from Warmouth. The body was a cheap internet find. But it also gives me the ability to get those Strat in between sounds. Okay, so just using the middle pickup, tone all the way up. This is just the basic clean sound, clean and dry. And I got the preamp is pushing a little bit, but it's pretty clean sound overall. So then with some compression, and this is with the bloom just at the limit setting. Now this is with the more dramatic compression. And this actually has 2 compression stages cascaded to emulate the sound that Lowell George created in the 70s with 2 1176s in the studio and actually even on the road as well. So you get a lot of sustain, but you lose some of the articulation. And then gradually getting into the dirtier sounds, a little bit of boost from the Octonaut. And I tend to run it just into that sort of edge of breakup kind of sound, not heavily into the dirt, because I have other things for that. So one of the sounds that I use quite a bit from the overture is kind of an attempt at getting like a plexi type tone. Got a little bit of delay in there, a little bit of reverb in there as well. And then for when we really want to get down and dirty, we get some of the fuzz. And as I mentioned, Demeter built the fuzzulator with 2 clipping diodes. That was the silicone, and this is the germanium. So there is a little bit of drop in output because it's so compressed from the clipping. I tend to run it on the silicone, but again, it depends on the song and what's going to suit it best. So just to give some examples of the versatility of the Overture, we'll just go through the different gain stages that they offer. This is their boost. Then what they call their classic. The boutique. The versatile. One they call smooth. And last but not least, the crunch. So Eventide's known for their harmonizer. They make some really great time-based effects, and the H9 includes some great algorithms and presets. So beyond the classic delays and reverbs, you can get into some of their kind of more surreal and funky ones. This one's called Quasar, and I use it just for some very specific songs. It could get really muddy if you're not careful with it. And it's got pretty long reverb trail, so it's important that if you're switching out of that you have your presets set accordingly, so you don't inadvertently cut that off. And that's one of the things that's nice with the Mastermind. It gives you the ability to leave that trail intact, switch to your next sound without an issue. So in this case, I'm going from this algorithm called Quasar to Mountain, and you do notice a tiny bit of change in volume, but generally I'm able to trail it off far enough that it's not really quite so noticeable if you mute it right.
So tell me, final thoughts here. What was going through your head as you were putting this rig together? How long did it take you to get to this final form? Is it the final form?
It's been a matter of trial and error, and starting from rack-based systems and just saying, yeah, you know what, this is too much to be lugging around for the type of gigs I'm playing and the amount of support I get. So I wanted to be able to get, a wide variety of tones. Wanted it to be portable, versatile, and basically bomb-proof because, if I've got to fly, it's got to survive the airlines, who, as we know, they break guitars. They break just about anything you throw at them.
They certainly do.
And, also, the time constraints. You're at a festival, you may not have a lot of setup time. I want to be able to get things set up quickly. So this kind of gives me a little bit of all of those things, some versatility, durability, convenience, and just, the availability to get whatever tones I'm looking for, because I play other projects besides just Mean Old Fireman. So I really don't want to have separate rigs for each kind of thing. With a Mastermind, I basically just create a set list for whatever gig I'm playing, and it pretty much does what I'm looking for.
It's something that I see a lot in synthesizers that is so important when you have, sometimes hundreds of presets. But to see that in a guitar like pedal rig is really unique and cool. And I think, like you said, presents you with a lot of versatility when it comes to switching up your gigs and sounds. It's a really cool idea. It's not something that I've seen live before, and I am a big fan. It is very, very cool. Well, yeah, tell us where we can find your music. Tell us, upcoming anything. Tell us what's up.
Let's see. We have a couple things coming up in August. We'll be back at the Midway Cafe on the 24th in the Boston area.
Lenny Lashley behind the bar there, I believe.
Yep.
Done some touring with him.
We'll be back there. Our latest album, Rescue 3, is basically everywhere in the digital world. Whether you're in Spotify or Tidal or Apple Music, it's there. And that's also available on vinyl through our store on our website, meanoldfireman.com.
Meanoldfireman.com. Y'all get that vinyl. Well, thank you so much for coming in. We'll see you next time.
Patrick.
Mean Old Fireman. Bye, y'all.